Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. Good to see some people in the building. What have we got there? We got 10 people in the chat already. That's good. That's good. Got a special guest tonight. It's your boy Trillblack. Back with another one. And I've got a guest with me tonight. A very special guest. I've not had him on before. And uh, he'll be joining us soon. He'll be joining us very soon. So we'll just sit tight. How's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? How is everybody doing? Um, Hello, Joy. How you doing, Joy? So we have Brother George on with us this evening, and Brother George has been around a little, uh, knows his stuff, just a little, you know. He is the second half of the dynamic duo that makes up the Black Secret Channel, and he has a lot to say about the research that the Black Secret Channel does, the places that they've been with that research, the work that they're currently doing. And, you know, when you got someone as big, a big personality like uh, the eminent Robin Walker involved in your involved with you in an enterprise, it's not going to be surprising that he gets a lot. Someone like the Robin Walker gets a lot of the limelight. You know that is it's to be expected. Robin Walker is a monolith. He's a giant in this space. Um, and so because of that, you don't often get to hear from brother George, who's in the background. Does a lot of the background stuff, but he's there. He's there. He's got his own thing going. Um, and got his own view of the research that the Black Secret Channel does and puts out. Um, and because of Robin Walker being so articulate and so well read, and really the face of the operation, he doesn't, uh, Robin, Brother George just is happy to let that be and let Robin Walker speak for the both of them. But it's not to say the brother George hasn't seen some things himself, hasn't been some places himself, doesn't have a few um, juicy tidbits that he might want to share with the people. Um, and yes, he does so, and he will be with us shortly tonight, this evening. It is evening here in the United Kingdom, in His Majesty's realm, his corruption's realm, let's say, His Majesty, His eminent scumbaggery's realm. Uh, Not my King Prince Charles, so-called Prince. Here in the United Kingdom. Oh, come on, this wasn't supposed to be a negative one tonight. And I've already started. Look at me, naughty boy that I am. Hello, brother George. I suppose I ought to make you feel comfortable by showing my face as well. Let me add you to stage and ask you what you would like. Hello, brother George.
Hi. Yeah, okay.
We're live
Am I
now,
going to
by
be
the
in a
way.
circle? Because I was trying. Oh, we're live.
Yes, we're live. We're live.
Oh,
I was just prepping
wow.
the people. I was just prepping the people. But go on, talk to me. What did you want to say? As
I
long
was
as it's
going to put my backdrop in, but I'm having difficulties doing that in StreamYard.
okay, your
So
backdrop. Um, that would be if you hit the cog symbol at the bottom,
yeah.
and then go on to camera. I'll do it myself first, so I'm seeing the same thing as you are. Go on to camera. Actually, no, go on to visual effects. If you go to visual effects and scroll down, you should see a range. It says virtual backdrops. It's got some in-house backdrops, and you can then add, I think by the time you get onto the third sort of uh the third image icon down the row, you'll see upload background. Do you see that at all?
Yes, I can see that, and
Mm.
uh I've actually uploaded my background. I've clicked on it. It doesn't seem to want to play ball.
Oh,
If it
okay. So
doesn't,
you already did that.
yeah,
Okay. That's
never
odd.
mind, never mind.
Um, what do you want to do then? Are you still okay carrying on?
We're okay. We're fine. We're fine.
Okay.
It's just that
Okay.
you're not going to be able to see our black secret logo in the background.
Oh,
That's all.
right, right, right. I don't know why
It's okay.
I don't know why that's happening.
I
So
don't
what
know.
does it
I've
say?
just been having to.
What does it say when you actually click the image you want?
It's selected, but it's just not doing anything. I thought maybe there might be something else that I needed to do. Um, I scrolled further down. It's just got custom adjustments, reset all. Um, hmm, I just don't know. I just don't know. I was just hoping to be able to do that because obviously on Zoom and other facilities, that's how we roll. But never mind. I suppose people will have to do with the wallpaper and my curtain
That's
as well, if
okay.
that's okay.
That's fine. They've seen much worse with. Well, look, if you look at my background, I'm such a um shoddy workman that this is supposed to be a nice nice sort of soundproof thing that I put up myself. But
Studio, yeah.
actually my wife has had a good go at me and said, "You've not done it properly. Look at the gaps. Look at the gaps in the thing." And but it's already up. But when I ordered the kit to, make the background look very professional, I just wanted to get on with it, and I thought I knew exactly what I was doing, and I was very pleased with myself at first until, I was it was pointed out that everything's supposed to be in, complete, there's not supposed to be a gap at
Any
all, but
gaps?
there we go. But people don't mind these things. People don't mind these things.
You know what? It makes it look unique. It's a unique style. It's the Trillblack thing.
Brother George with the diplomatic speak. Yeah, thank you,
I've been
thank
told
you.
that
I'll take
quite a lot, actually.
I'll take that. Okay. I was just telling the people this evening about, yeah, just telling people who you are and about how you are the second half of the dynamic duo that makes up the Black Secret, and why we don't often hear from you doesn't necessarily equate to you not having a lot to say. So just whetting their appetite slightly. Um,
Okay. Of
brother
course, your
George,
audience knows of. Oh, sorry.
no, go on, go ahead.
Yes. So obviously, Robin's been on your platform before. The very great Black History man,
Mm,
Robin Walker, who is our lead lecturer. Now, just a minor correction. You said the second half, but in fact, I'm the third half because there is another
mm,
founding member as well of the Black Secret organization. So it's myself, Brother George, Robin Walker, the Black History man, and Danny Thompson as well, who is a somewhat of a low-key British black film legend from back in the days, who
mm.
has quite
Wow.
a substantial pedigree as well. He's also an academic, and he's currently working on his PhD. So I'm Brother George. I'm an artist by background and tradition. And I worked as a freelance artist and graphic designer, working primarily in the book industry, producing Black conscious material. And I've collaborated with uh, Michael Williams on children's publications such as Blacks in Science, Black Scientists and Inventors, which really focused on that kind of like subject area. For around a good 20 years, we produced about 8 editions. It's still going, and I'm very proud of that contribution. And I've worked extensively within that field. I'm also a lecturer and an educator as well. I primarily lecture in self-help materials and also spirituality. And I'm also a energy healer as well. So that's another aspect of Brother George, as well as being one of the founding members of the online Black history platform, The Black Secret, which we're very proud of. We've been sort of like putting out Black history to a global audience over the internet for the last 3.5 years. And so we're fairly new to that, but all of our key members, Robin, Danny, and myself, have been involved in disseminating Black history and consciousness and philosophy and even spirituality for around 20 years now. We've just taken it online for a global audience to consume and have access to it, essentially. So that's more or less where Brother George is coming from. I could go on because there are many different strings to my bow. I could talk a little bit more about the Black Secret. We would really like people to check us out. We do have a platform, and I'll probably give those details towards the end. But just to let you know that our content is ever growing and expanding. So I would recommend that people check it out. We do have our course is a subscription course, but as I said, the value constantly keeps on growing. We have about 90 hours of exceptional Black history content on our platform. We also have that's pre-recorded, and the reason for that is that it's going out to a global audience. So what's good for one person in the UK time-wise might not be right for someone in the US. And so it just made sense to have our core content pre-recorded so that people can then access the content at their own leisure and time and at their own pace. And so you can stop and start. If you've got like a busy schedule, you can do like 5 minutes, half an hour, anything that you want. Most lessons are around 1 to 1.5 hours long, on all subjects from far antiquity all the way to the last 500 years of colonial history as well. So we cover the whole gambit, but also as well, we have wonderful live classes as well. There is a certain magic about doing things live as well. And so we do that. Our last class was on who are the ancient Egyptians, and we're always updating our content. It's one of the most popular modules that we have, but also as well, we just brought a whole different level of evidences to our live classes. And it's an opportunity for students all over the world to engage not only with Robin, myself, and Danny, but also as well, we have guests on. And maybe one day we'll have Trillblack on. We've been talking about this. So one of these days, Trill is going to be on our platform, and we look forward to that. But for now, it's Brother George on Trill's platform, following in the wake of our very dear and beloved brother Robin Walker. So yes, there's a whole lot that we're doing. We're also moving into cultural tourism as well. We've recently started taking people out to Egypt, to Ghana, and we plan on doing more of that. So it's an opportunity to actually show people, and it just made sense for us. It's a natural step to take people out there. We're teaching people about these great civilizations, these great histories. So it makes sense to take people out into the field to experience the monuments themselves. And then we have lectures on top of that as well. And so we're just gearing up into that, and that's the next big chapter of the Black Secret. So that's Brother George and the Black Secret. Here we are.
Wow, wow. Um, Chat, I'm just typing in something that's going to be running across the bottom of this video for the rest of the live. You need to do that. If you don't know anything about the Black Secret by now, what have you been doing? Go over. I have Robin Walker's book, by the way. It's a thick book that I haven't started yet, and it looks nice and pretty and beautiful on my library shelf. But I need to get stuck into that book because um, it looks like it doesn't look scary, but it does look
It's
scary
intimidating.
in yes, it's well, in a different sort of a way, in the sense that I constantly have ideas in my head for videos because I'm jumping from one research to the other, one area of interest to the other. But it's scary when I look at that book because I know as soon as I pick it up, all the ideas in my head will just go to the power of 10,000, and I'll just be I'll be swimming in, wow, I didn't know this and I didn't know that. And that's a video and that's a video and that's a video. So from that perspective, it's scary. But in terms of actual enjoyable reading, oh no, no, no. I cannot wait to get stuck into that book. Um, Brother George, um, thank you for everything you said just now. This is gonna be great. I want us to start with one more thing. Right. Just so we know, guys, I recently came out with a video on how, believe it or not, even the Trojan horse stratagem, the Trojan horse, the central uh plot, the thing that everybody knows from the Iliad, Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey. Even that was taken from Africans. Don't believe me? Go and watch the video after this live if you haven't already. Now, I am also rushing through another video to prove something else about it's linked to the Odyssey, but it's also linked to the classical Greek civilization itself, as we popularly know it, and it will blow your mind, maybe even more than the one I just put out. Now, I'm trying to get it out for next couple of weeks. It would be helpful. I have in the comments, in
Oh, hello. Hello. I'm going to try and call Trill if I'm the one who's still on, because I can see
I'm
people in the
back.
comments saying
I'm back.
Trill
I'm
has
back.
dropped out.
Sorry
Hold on a
about that.
second. I think he might be coming back. Hi, Trill. I think you dropped
Sorry
out.
about that. So I don't know
I
what
took over your
happened.
show for
Someone
like 5 seconds.
sorry about that. But as I was saying, let me just quickly get back my train of thought. So what I'll be doing is I'll be trying my best to get this next bombshell bit of research out for you guys on the Trillblack channel. However, you can speed me up. I'll put a goal in the comments, in the comment space for the chat, and it's literally, let's see if we can hit 10 super chats. 10 super chats. There's something YouTubers started recently, and I'm going to utilize it. It would help me massively. It would help me to just focus and say, right, the people want this. The people want this ASAP. So if we can hit 10 super chats, now the goal, you can click the top of the chat box and you can see what the requirements are. Hit 10 super chats, and that will be out for you in the next 7 days. I will jettison everything I'm doing to put out this video. Whilst people are still kind of still talking about the Odyssey, whilst it's still hot, just to embarrass them a little bit. So if you want that, the target is 10 super chats. Right. Before we've done that now. I want to ask you something, brother George. Um, how
Before
did
you go
you
there, though,
go on, go on,
I'm
go on.
very curious about your Trojan horse theory. Could you give
Mm.
us a little morsel into that? Because, of course, the truth is there is so much African history generally connected either directly or tangentially to the works of Homer, both the Iliad and the Odyssey as well. So I'm
See,
very curious about that.
see, brother George, when you said we'll do this for till about 10:30. I said no, no, no. This this brother, we're gonna go past 10:30 because I know brother George. Brother George loves a good deep dive. And case in point number one, how can I say this? I don't wanna go off too much on a tangent because it's
Okay.
pretty meaty. But I'll say actually it links to my first question to you tonight. Sheikh Anta Diop said this. He said the link is Egypt. The link is Egypt. And Sheikh Anta Diop said, I've got this quote up. It says, Ancient Egypt was a Negro civilization. The history of Black Africa will remain suspended in the air and cannot be written correctly until African historians dare to connect it with the history of Egypt. Okay. So the answer, I will only say is in Egypt, in that region. But it's not just in Egypt. It goes deeper down. But I will just say Egypt for now. I'll just say Egypt. Egypt is a link. And that's what I'll say. But it's only 7 days old, so people can almost 7 days old, so people can go and check it out. We already have our first super chat, our first response to that call out. $5 from Kieran Grant. Thank you very much. Day one, as ever, passionate and zealous. Thank you. 9 to go, says Kieran Grant. So he set up the challenge, everyone. Let's go. Let's get it. All right. Thank you so much for that, Kieran. Thank you very much. So that's the quote from Sheikh Anta Diop, brother George. Okay. And when I first came across that quote, I was about to open up his seminal work on this topic. And I didn't quite take that quote seriously, um, but I do now. How did you, Brother George, discover that Egypt was in the main and for the majority of its history, a black-led civilization?
How did I discover that? You know, I was born on the continent. I'm Ghanaian, and there is much about the narrative of all parts of Africa which have never struck me as being remotely correct. I believe I was very fortunate that I grew up with uncles and aunts who were very well educated. And certain information was just always circulating around me. I can't even tell you when I first knew that Egypt was a black civilization, but I, from a very early age, was aware of that. Obviously, back in the day, and I might be showing my age here,
Mm.
um, uh, uh, films like Moses, the Ten Commandments.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of other films, Cleopatra, with the very convincing Elizabeth Taylor as Cleopatra. Now, I used to like those films. Now, I knew that there was a propaganda associated with it, but what I enjoyed about it, and I actually have them in my collection to this day, was the sets, the designs, which gave you a sense of some of that was quite accurate. What was inaccurate were the actors and actresses sort of like in the lead roles and the associations as well. These are fundamentally black groups of people. You mentioned that Sheikh Anta Diop quote. We need to reconcile Egypt to have a proper understanding of Africa and African history in antiquity. That is so profound and it's so true. You also alluded to these civilizations coming from the south. Um, you know, Egypt is really the child of the Nile. and it's the child of Kush. Um, you know, um, uh, uh, the roots stem from uh, uh, the starting points of the River Nile, which is actually three rivers. So it's the White Nile, the Blue Nile, and the diminished Nile, which is the Yellow Nile, which no longer exists in its true form. Some of it is underground, some of it has evaporated. The Yellow Nile is very important. So we have three groups of African people. We have the people on the Ethiopian plains, which is where I think it's Lake Tana, which is the origins of the Blue Nile. Also, we have going down into Kenya and Uganda and that kind of area, the origins of the White Nile. Now, where does the Yellow Nile originate from? It originates from um, uh, the central Saharan region of Chad, and it used to connect with Lake Chad. But this was in the Green Sahara phase when Lake Chad was around 20 times bigger. And it's sort of like connected Lake Chad with the River Niger, and then the Wadi Hawa, which is the Yellow Nile. So all of these groups of people from these different locations um, uh, in Africa, East Africa and Central Africa, actually seeded the kingdoms that would go on to become Kush, and then further north, Kemet as well. So that's my understanding. But my understanding has grown and developed, and all of the evidences and histories that I've come across have just slotted into place to make the understanding even more concrete. We can look at the language families, which are all interconnected. But one of the biggest lies, because a lot of the separation which has come through about misperceptions about ancient Egypt and its, fundamentally continental African roots, comes from misperceptions about what the Sahara is. A lot of people think wrongly that it's always been a desert, but actually it has its green phases every 8 to 10,000 years. And when that happens, you have with the movement of the water, when it changes, movements of people, because people like to settle where the rivers are. So as the Sahara dries up, that pushes people in different directions, and many of them head towards the east from the central region. And they develop incredible technologies. As the people move towards the east and northeast, they bring those new technologies with them: agricultural techniques, practices, metallurgy. Africa has several regions that have the oldest iron metallurgy works in the world. And I think the oldest has been located in Nigeria. In Nigeria. And it's the brilliance of these people from the region of Lake Megachad during the Green Sahara phases, who initiated so many developments and progressions as well, which then go off to seed so many different important civilizations. So it's important that we dispel the myth about the Sahara Desert, because once you do that, you can see that continental African people were free to move, because the other false narrative which comes with that is the idea that we were a very sedentary people. We
Mm,
didn't move around. So think of the people of West Africa as completely separate from the people of East Africa, of North Africa, and so forth, of South Africa. That's not true. That's not true. There were very significant waterways which were used to build and develop significant civilizational developments. And once they dried up, they became the trade routes. And people remember them, and they would travel backwards and forwards between Central Africa, West Africa, East Africa, and even Northeast and North Africa as well. You know, it was our continent. And the further back you go into prehistory, you will see that even in areas which nowadays are predominated by Arab types, had a fundamental black foundation to it. You know, so Africans dominated in prehistory all of Africa, not just the tropical regions and further south,
Mm,
but the Sahel region, which you'll still find Fulani and uh, African pure continental African types, as far as I'm concerned, um, in those regions, but also further north as well. You know, the displacement of these people from power, from positions of power, really started to happen around the time of the Islamic revolutions and impacts as well. Before that, fundamentally, you would find our people in great numbers in North Africa. And even in Egypt today, um, unless you go there, you're not going to know. But there is a huge population of people from the center of Egypt, particularly going down to the south, who are significantly continental African in appearance and phenotypes. You have
let's
to
go
go
there.
there to see it, and experience it
Let's
yourself.
actually go there, brother George. You were telling me that you've just been to Egypt recently. So did you
Yeah.
go? Your From what you're saying, I'm guessing you went to the black side. You know.
Well, I actually did. There are so many different ways of experiencing Egypt. It's not so much that I went to the black side, it's more that I was in the community. So
Mm,
my experience was I went with a family that lives over there, that actually lives in Luxor. And so the family is based in Luxor. I
mm,
was quite privileged. I actually feel quite privileged because the people who I interacted with there um, have a very unique and deep understanding of the history of ancient Egypt. Um, the whole family are in the tourism business. You know, one brother's a driver, the other one is a Egyptologist and tour guide.
um,
They are all in the trade, as it were. But what's really interesting about certain people from Luxor is that there's a region which is actually where the Valley of the Kings are, and the tombs of the nobles. Um, and the people that I know are close friends with a community that actually had their homes over some of the tombs of the nobles. So many of
mm.
those homes had sort of like tombs underneath them,
Wow.
which is really interesting. Um, so they would actually grow up, and one of them was actually born in one of the tombs. His mother was pregnant. I think she was alone at home. Um, uh, they couldn't. She went into labor before a ambulance or anything could be called.
Mm,
So what did she do? She went down into the tomb of one of the nobles, which was above their home, and gave birth to him there. Now, can you imagine being a child and your best friend lives in a home which has one of the tombs of the nobles, such as Pabasha, underneath it? And you can see the wall paintings, which are pristine in their coloration, the
mm,
stories that they tell about these nobles, the people who worked for the nobles, which you can see from relief to relief. It's the same people who are being depicted, bringing fruits. And then the noble sort of like goes off to meets the gods. All of this underneath a person's home. The kind of insights and outlooks that you would have been exposed to that kind of material ever since you were very young. That's the kind of exposure and understanding that they have. And let me just share this with you. Many of those tombs, the colorations, even though we're led to believe that the typical colorations are this kind of like symbolic red and yellow, in
Mm.
the tombs of the nobles, no, men and women can be and very often are depicted in a naturalistic
Mm.
brown skin tone. If it's slightly reddish, it's as red as I am, basically. You know,
Wow.
um, you can see the different characteristics. Some of them look, like typical East African, Habasha type people. Others look the Afar people. Others look like more of the Sudanese darker types. It's all there. It's all there in the tombs, yet we're led to believe that there was only this color symbolism. That color symbolism is there, but even in some of those cases, you can see that the colors are slightly faded, the top layers are a little bit faded, and that they
Mm.
would have been a much richer kind of color, you know? So the people who I am with have that kind of like exposure. There are many different levels of understanding of the ancient histories of the Egyptians in Egypt itself. You, if you're at the street level or sort of like go there where you're in the community, you will discover that. The people who are in Luxor very much see themselves as the custodians of that ancient history, not only because of their closeness, but because there is that understanding of the history that the great kings came from the south.
Mm.
South is up. They are still called the uplanders because they are from the south. And the further south you go, you'll see people of all kinds of descriptions, all kinds of skin tones, but progressively you will see greater and greater numbers of darker and darker people the further south you go. The people who they call the Nubians, who are located mainly in Aswan, they are very proud of their history. And even though they're called Nubians, they know that they have the ancient connections with the pharaonic royalty. They are very much aware of this. Um, uh, on the surface level, you may not necessarily get that if you're doing the hotels, because if you're doing the hotels,
Mm.
you're probably in like a 5-star, really plush location, and that's fantastic. It's a wonderful experience, and then you get driven out by coach, perhaps one day down to Luxor or to the pyramids or what have you. So what you have in that kind of experience is really the hotels, sort of like the upper class environments, and then the monuments. But in terms of what's on the ground, in terms of the communities, in terms of like what the culture is actually like at the
Mm.
ground level, you're probably overlooking a lot of things, and you're probably not going to be seeing as many melanated people because, of course, there
Mm.
is also an economic reality that the jobs in the 5-star hotels are more sort of like prestigious, and therefore there is a lower number of people who look like myself or Trill who you will find working in these spaces. And so you might have an experience where you're seeing people who have a more typically quote unquote Arab like sort of like phenotype and appearance. But believe me, there are many people who are, in Luxor, it's kind of like the typical appearance. If you're in the community, is like someone who might be biracial or
Mm.
Caribbean, sort of
Mm.
like a typical kind of like Caribbean person. In fact, the family that I was connected with, it was very much like a Caribbean family where, might, one brother is darker than me. The guy who I
Wow.
knew best is much lighter. Another brother looks like the guy that I'm, hanging out with the most, but
Mm.
he's, has like a chocolate complexion, and that's just one family. That's just one family.
Which
So
is
because
it's
I was in the community, yeah, sorry.
no, go on. You finish. Sorry.
Yes, I was in the community. And I was always looking around, I was really inspired to look around because before I went, I was hearing reports from other people who had been to places along the coastline, like Haggadah, and they would go to Cairo. And very often they were like, yeah, yeah, got to see the pyramids, but nah, it's not the place for me. I was thinking, why? Why are you saying that? And they'll talk about the kinds of people that they were interacting with, and what their experience was. Now, my experience was completely different, but that's because I was in the heart of the communities. You know,
Mm,
even when I was in Cairo, we were staying near Giza itself, rather than the upmarket part of Cairo. And there, the people that you would see coming off the buses at the end of the school day, where I was staying, you were just flooded by black children just coming
my
off the
goodness.
buses.
See, this is
So,
the thing,
and the experience. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Brother George. This is the thing I've noticed is it. First, you got the commercialization of everything that black people created once upon a time, by people who are, for the most part, newcomers. Um, then you've got a what I've seen across the world now, not just in Egypt, but this tendency to put the black and brownish people of a population, you put them in the basement so that you only see them when you travel on the ground to these places. I'll give you an example. Mexico. Mexico has this problem massively. It has a major problem with this because you even think of their flagship boxer, their main athletic uh gift to the world, um Canelo Alvarez. This guy is he looks like an Irishman. He's a ginger fellow, red-headed fellow, white guy, and the Mexicans are happy with this. They're happy with that being the face of Mexico. And then you go and you watch clips of day-to-day life in the actual, in in on the ground, and you see very brown people. And I see it across
Mm.
the world. It's like this platforming of it's another form of racial prejudice, but it's colorism. It's this expression that
Yeah.
we call colorism, and it's wild. It's completely bizarre. You will see people say, people that look just like Beyonce. You will see them presented as part of a sort of melee of Egyptians. And if you point out, oh, that person's black, they'll say, no, that's stupid. They're just an Egyptian. But if you put that same person with a costume, you put that same person in a costume, in an ancient Egyptian costume, a well-sourced costume by a well experienced costume designer, and you put them in a docu series or a film, and you call that docu series Cleopatra, the Egyptians will come out and say, "That's not an Egyptian. Stop stealing our history." But the very same people who said that, when you pointed out that sister amidst the group of lighter skinned Egyptians, so that's a, they would have said, "No, no, 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 no." They start having panic attacks. That's just an Egyptian. We're very different. We're very varied. But why then do you only freak out when that person who looks more like what the ancient Egyptians would have looked like? Why do you freak out? Why do you only freak out when that person is given a role of Cleopatra? Why do you only freak out when that kind of a person is given? You don't freak out when you have not Liz Hurley, Elizabeth Taylor. You don't freak out when you have Elizabeth Taylor. You didn't freak out then, you know. Gerard Butler. You didn't freak out then, but you want to freak.
That was crazy, that one. That was crazy. Did he play
Yeah,
Horace, Gerard
yeah. I
Butler,
think so.
or
I think so.
Set?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
I think he played Set. I have not seen the film. I don't want to go anywhere near it. I think I've only seen clips.
Yeah.
As an adventure thing, I suppose it may have some merits as one of these like fantasy type things, but then you're putting Gerard Butler, sort of like
Mm,
Celtic and Anglo-Saxon Europeans to represent ancient Egyptian gods who were
gods.
always depicted in the tombs, similarly to the pharaohs, as having chocolate skin coloration.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's absolutely crazy.
Thank you,
I think it
Drega.
speaks to.
Sorry. Sorry,
Oh,
let me
sorry.
just do
Go
a
ahead.
quick shout out. I thought you had welcome to a natural close out. Just real quick shout out to Drego001 who says, bless up. Thank you very much for your $2 super chat donation there. Sorry,
Thank
carry
you,
on, Bro
Rego.
George.
Yeah, so you touched upon a lot of things. That the fact that it's not just African people that have been impacted by the effects of the propaganda of white supremacy. They call it white supremacy, but it's not that. This is what we're really talking about: how it's impacted people who are on their traditionally have not really been accorded the same respect as white Europeans, as quote unquote white Europeans, people who are sort of like around the, sort of like Mesoamerica region, people who might be, admixed with sort of like Amerindian blood and so forth, you know, there is this kind of like false hierarchy that the closer you are to whiteness, the more respect you'll be afforded. That's
Mm,
what, for me, is one of the key things that's at the heart of this. Trying to acquire or gain proximity to whiteness, and therefore you can be respected better within
mm,
your society. This is what they think, or by other people in that society or in adjacent societies, so that your stock can rise, so that you can have more opportunities. And it's a false equation. It's a false narrative. We have been artificially placed at the bottom. I
mm,
think this is one of the psychological reasons why there's so much resentment. So if your society has a historical black foundation, for those people who are, what do you call them, your uh, pharaonic theorists and so forth, I'm
oh,
sorry,
yeah.
but your kings, your great kings, came from the South. They were very proud of depicting themselves with the features which you will find in Harlem, the Bronx, and other places where you find profoundly black people. You know, that's where the pharaonic rulers, the Cometians, came from, and they were very proud of it. They were very proud of their profiles. They were very proud of their prognatism,
Mm,
and they always illustrated that. If you examine these images closely, you will see that it is not just an abstract take. They are very detailed. These are very skilled craftsmen and artisans who got the highest pay from the government and the rulers. They were the very best, and they worked within a certain style and tradition, but were able to encapsulate the characteristics of individual people. And that's what you see if you actually go there and study the ruins and the wall reliefs. You will see that. People need to really look more closely. If you look more closely, you'll be able to see the genius that's at work there. But anyway, getting back to your main point, you talked about the response to the modern take on Cleopatra, which was part of the Netflix series. What's interesting about the lady who they chose to play Cleopatra is that she was decidedly biracial. They went for someone who had a biracial aesthetic. Now, what's really interesting about it is that if you do visit Egypt, from Jinnah, which is in the center, in fact, actually, even Cairo, because Cairo is a bit like London, everyone from all parts of Egypt actually come there for work purposes. So you have a lot of people that are from the Sinai Peninsula, the Western Desert, Aswan, other places as well. And so it's a real mix. And my friends from Luxor don't really see them as having strong roots because they know that they're there for economic purposes and they come from all over Egypt. Even there, you will find people who look like that actress. And our perspective from the West is that, hold on a second, there are people in Egypt, whether they label themselves as Arab or whether they have a different kind of understanding and label themselves as some kind of indigenous black person. That's another thing that you'll find. You will find that people are quite comfortable with both associations, that it's an Arab nation, and then they might know the real history, have exposure to it, and be very comfortable with identifying themselves as black. Arab is really, in some cases, more of a cultural designation. There are people who look like her who identify as Arab. That doesn't necessarily mean that they don't know that they are black. But for them, it's like, firstly, especially if they're Muslim, it's like, okay, I'm a Muslim. I'm a Muslim
Mm,
man or woman. That's the first thing. Secondly, my culture is Arab. I speak Arabic. And then thirdly, they may know, especially if they look like the lady who starred as Cleopatra, that I am black, but they may
mm,
not necessarily say it. That's kind of like a cultural thing as well. But
mm.
there are many people all over Egypt who look like that lady, but because they know that I don't think she was an Egyptian lady. She
No,
probably came from the West. She's
she was
biracial. She
she was
might
African American.
African American.
Yeah.
Exactly. See, it's the label African American. But many African American people, may have a infusion of other kinds of bloodlines, whether it's Native American or European, because of the enslavement process and the
Mm,
brutality of it and the exploitation of it. Um, I think it's roughly about 13% is European bloodline. Some
mm,
people may have a pure African, bloodline, but very often some people have that influence because of the enslavement period, and therefore we have many different phonetic qualities in the New World in particular. But that person could pass as Egyptian, as genuinely
mm,
Egyptian, you know? So, and so what are we talking about? You have an African American actress who identifies as African American, who might have a certain percentage of European and perhaps even Native American blood, who looks a certain way, but identifies as African American. But actually, in terms of um, uh, genetics, she could easily pass from even a modern Egyptian who
mm.
has some element of non-black, quote unquote, Arab blood in them, or Euro-Asian, Arab-looking bloodlines within them. Many
Mm,
people are now admixed to one degree or another,
mm,
like the family that I was telling you about, who was expressing many different kinds of um, phenotypical traits, from being very dark to being very light and fair, you know? And so what are we really talking about? What are they really arguing about? It's the proximity to blackness that they don't want.
that's it.
They don't
That's
want to
it.
be associated historically with blackness. Why? Because psychologically they feel it would diminish their status in the eyes of other Arab nations
Mm,
and other
mm-hmm.
people around. It's all artificial and false. It's all artificial and false. Yeah.
Family, no lies are detected here. No lies are detected at all. Um, remember our goal. Let's remember our goal. 10 super chats, and I dropped that video because you just mentioned Cleopatra just now, and you were talking about it in the context that I was talking about it earlier. But we have a state of affairs now where, as where there is no opprobrium, there's no shock, there's no outrage until people like us enter the picture. We can have Gerard Butler depicting people who are black and brown historically. We can have Elizabeth Taylor depicting it. We can have all sorts of shenanigans going on for the longest of time. But the minute we enter the picture, it's even taken on as a moral crusade. People talk and rail against what's going on as though it's a moral duty. You know, um, you hear of blackwashing as though that's even a thing, as though it didn't, as though the term isn't ironic in itself, in and of itself, because the original, the default term is whitewashing. People have even, they say it as though without any sense of irony. And you hear, you just hear people talk as if they're insane. And family, like I'm telling you now, I will drop it in the next 7 days. I will drop everything I'm doing, and I'll make sure that video comes out in the next 7 days. And it is proof that far more about Greece, this being this white haven, this place where that developed on its own as a incubated from whatever was going on in on a dark continent, away from us sub-Saharan Africans. It will prove in this video that that's all a lie. And I will do it with facts. I'll do it with, as I always do when I come with these videos that seem shocking. I always come with receipts, and I will do it with receipts. You'll see it in the comments, and you'll see it in the video, lest anyone should want to run their mouth. I have noticed that in this latest video on Homer's the Trojan horse, there's been very few trolls, because I put it to you guys in the chat that it's because they can't they can't, what can they say? The whole video from start to finish is is littered with quotations, with hard evidence, and then you get that in the description as well, where I put the sources. Okay. One of the things you were mentioning just now, brother George, um one of the things you were saying, really, really, I was pleased to hear it, because it's one of my big bugbears. Whenever they show whenever they show ancient Egypt in either in a game, in a simulated world, or on screen at the cinema, it's always like really dry and deserty. But you don't build a civilization like ancient Egypt on a desert. One of the reasons why why Las Vegas is such a uh, attraction, one of the reasons it's such a wonder of the modern world, is that it was built in a desert, and it was built, it could only been that could only been possible with the modern um technological advances that we have, and infrastructure technology that we have. Back then, you're not building a civilization like Egypt on in a desert. So when you reconstruct Egypt, reconstruct it like it was a savanna, a green savanna region that was lush, plush, that is almost unrecognizable compared with what we have it looking like today. And well, of course, they don't care about this, because they don't really care about historicity, do they? They don't. They don't care about historicity until it comes to us telling the stories of our ancestors properly and taking those stories back. That's when everyone wants to be uh everyone wants to invect on what type of shield the Trojans used, and that's when everyone all of a sudden becomes a Greek classical expert. When Lupita Nyong'o stars in it, that's when we all know about helmets, and it's stupid. It's completely transparent. But that's that thing that you said about how Egypt was built at the tail end of a blooming, lush, flourishing period in the in the Nile Valley. That's so crucial to our understanding of how that civilization, and just visualizing it. So I thank you so much for reminding us about that key fact. Thank you so much for that, bro. I want to ask you this. Um, do you ever, when you go to Egypt, like when you, like just recently, do you ever get the sense of a divide, or how could I put it, a sense of bitterness from those black and brown kids you see coming off the bus, or their parents? You ever get a sense of uneasiness, prejudice seething from one side or the other, or some kind of reactionary bitterness as to, because you said earlier, some of these people, most of these people who look like myself and yourself living in Egypt today, are often relegated to low economic status. Do you sense a bitterness that emanates from that at all whenever you're there?
You know, my experience, the pros of it is that it's sort of like a authentic ground level kind of experience, because I'm with an Egyptian family from the south. as it were, even when I'm in the north. And in a way, I have a chance to observe things in a very naturalistic sense, um, which is great. But also, as well, another thing is because I'm with Egyptian families from the south. Um, Whenever I go into a particular space, it's almost like a safeguard and a barrier. I get the feeling it's going to be, it probably would be different if I wasn't with that particular family going everywhere, basically. So it kind of like softens the barrier in terms of like perhaps maybe microaggressions and things like that. But every time I meet someone who it could be someone serving me hibiscus tea in a cafe which is in the middle of the motorway. They there are cafes in sort of like Cairo and the Giza Plateau, which is literally in the middle of kind of like an A road with a one-way system. Absolutely great, beautiful places, looking like modern day kind of like Berber tents and things like that. Some of the people that came up to me were young guys who were doing a shift who were darker than us both,
Wow.
typically looking just like sort of like the images you will find in the tombs. And one of his brothers who was serving me, he looked at me. My guys, said, yeah, hibiscus tea, this and that and the other. He goes away. He brings his brother out, who's just as dark as him. And they're looking at me. This is in Cairo, the Giza Plateau, near Giza, in Giza itself. And they're looking at me. They've come to look at me because they think I look Egyptian. Now, everywhere that I went, whether it was in the north, in the White Desert, the Black Desert, whether I was in Memphis, Saqqara, whether I was in Jinnah, whether I was in Luxor,
Mm.
I always got that reaction. I always got that reaction. I could have people sort of like uh, uh, from a distance who would see me and they would literally walk up to me and ask, "Are you Nubian? Are you Egyptian?"
Wow. Wow.
And then I would say, "No, I'm West African." And I actually had a really interesting conversation with a young brother from Aswan who is training to be a doctor. And he loves his culture so much. He actually takes people on tours through the Nubian village because he wants people to know about it.
Mm.
And he's training to be a doctor. So my experience was more that when I encountered Black people in Cairo, for example, working in cafes, sort of like being sort of like uh, you could say like security people and what have you. It was more a case of recognition.
Mm.
And I would even get that from people who you might think, because of their phenotype, are more typically Arab, who would look at me the same way, you know. So my experience was rather different. I do think that perhaps there is a bit of that there. What I will say is that in terms of like everywhere that I went, whether it was in Cairo, whether it was in Jinnah, Luxor, Aswan, there is huge amounts of poverty, irrespective of whether, you can look at that person and say, that person definitely looks like he's got black blood in them or not.
Mm.
The amount of poverty that is there is phenomenal. And people are on the hustle because of that, you know. And it's a story that you'll find broadly across Africa if you look closely. That, you have incredible disparities of wealth. You do have a middle class, but so many people are struggling, you know, regardless of what they look like.
mm,
So it's not, I didn't really get that impression that way. The response to me, as I said, it was slightly insulated, and it was more a case of, what is this brother doing here? And the other
mm,
thing as well is that the majority of tourists tend not to be of our persuasion. And so when you go there and they see you, they will love you.
mm,
That's part of the experience that you will have. And more so the further south that you go, they will recognize you, they will acknowledge you, and when you get to the south, they will embrace you in a powerful way.
mm,
You know, that was my experience. But I did
mm,
see the poverty. Yes,
mm,
absolutely. But it's not so much. Uh, I think what you're talking about is probably there, because there is a racial paradigm.
mm,
Unfortunately, it's all over Africa. It's all over the so-called North Africa as well. It's there. They tend to have the less prestigious jobs or opportunities, but you know what? Things are beginning to change and move. So, and people are always on the hustle, but also as well in terms of like the women. Speaking to people who went to visit Egypt, say for example, 20, 25 years ago, you would see very few women on the streets because it's an Islamic society, strictly Islamic society. They have like a Coptic minority. So if you see women who aren't veiled, they are more likely to be Coptic. But today you are likely to see a greater number of women, whether of whatever coloration, sort of like in very diverse jobs.
mm,
The family that I have, well, I actually do consider them to be my family in Luxor.
mm,
Those guys, you know, their offices is run by one of the women in the family, basically. You know, obviously they're wearing the veil. You have like women who are now, you know, going into engineering and various other things. So things are beginning to soften, but it is a very um, traditional Islamic
yeah,
society by and
yeah,
large. And so you have that layer, you do have the economic layer. Even though I didn't see it too tough, I'm pretty sure it's there in terms of what you're talking about. But overall, the majority of people are struggling seriously. You know,
mm, mm.
someone's prized possession might be their donkey, who might be
Wow,
half dead.
that's still ancient. That's still that's still living like ancient times. That's
Honestly,
the
Trill, you can literally be on the high street, walk round the corner, and if you keep your eyes open, you will see someone riding a donkey cart carrying sugarcane which has been freshly cut.
wow,
You know, wearing clothes that look like it's from the late 1800s. And
wow,
there are
wow,
communities that are that old, more old fashioned, just around the corner.
wow.
And that's where you'll tend to
Incredible.
see more of the black looking people as well. If you keep your eyes
That's
open,
incredible.
look to
All
the
sports
sides,
tees.
you will
All
see them.
sports tees. We will get to it. All sports tees. We will get to that. But no, I'm not even gonna bother reading your comment out. But listen, listen. People will do well to read the description. So the description, the thumbnail is only, is the shiny part of the story, but it's only one part of the story. So read the description. We're talking about a whole range of things, and we will get to that. Sure as anything, as we go along. Um, I shouldn't even be engaging with that comment, really. Shout out to you all, sports tees, but I shouldn't be engaging with. I'm only engaging with super chats that are gonna help us get to our target. I want to drop that video in the next 7 days. I really want to drop that video in the next 7 days, but you guys need to give me an excuse to do so. So hit that little archer icon at the top of the chat box to see what you have to do to hit the 10 super chat goal. So we need to hit that 10 super chat goal, but we need to hit it the way following the instructions in the top left hand corner of the chat bar. So let's do that so I can drop this video in the next 7 days. Brother George, I'm thrilled by everything you're saying. Um, and I want to get out there. I want to get out there. And I actually had the opportunity to go this year, but all costs paid and everything. But family and work commitments, I just had to. I wasn't able to do that. But I do. You really whetting my appetite to get out there. Um, wow. Okay. We're talking about bitterness. Okay. One of the things I put in the description is the late Professor Jason Arday. You will have heard what's going on, of course. You'll have heard what's happened, Brother George. Um, speaking about bitterness, this is a very bitter making, sorry, sort of engenders nothing but bitterness. This story, this Dr. Jason Arday story. By any chance, did you know him? Did you? You know, I don't know if you ever met him at all in a conference or anything like that. No, yes.
No, no. This story is very new to me, and I
Mm,
only became aware of it about 2 weeks ago when he chose to resign.
mm,
So it's been a real shock. I had
mm,
no idea that he'd been hounded for around 3 years.
mm.
It's tragic and
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah. I just found out that it's been going on for longer as well. Shout out to you. Let me just read out this super chat from Willie Johnson. Thank you very much for your $2 super chat donation. Um, And also, thank you for becoming a member. We got a new member in Willie Johnson. Thank you so much for joining the Trill Nation in a meaningful way. Okay, okay. So, yeah, the Jason Arday thing is enraging. It's also enraging because new information has been coming to light recently. So, if you don't know, guys in America, we have a story tantamount to what happened to the head of Harvard a few years back now in the US, the black lady who was forced to resign on charges of plagiarism. But in this case, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, chat. Let me know if I'm wrong. But in the case of that lady, she wasn't beyond, guilt. She was actually guilty, and so she resigned. Professor Arday has been exonerated. Universities have actually looked at his work and said this PhD, there's nothing wrong with it at all. He's been cleared, completely cleared. Okay, so we still had this campaign. I went on a vile rant the other live. I say vile because I let myself go somewhere that I didn't want to go. But you know, this this is unfair. This man was hounded, he was cleared of plagiarism, but the press kept going. They kept going because they said, how dare you? Essentially, they were saying, how dare you? How dare a black man be given this role in Cambridge, our greatest institution of academia? That's what it was about, and they didn't rest until he took his life. And now that he's taken his life, he's not front page news anymore. They're quietly trying to pretend like they haven't been hounding him for the past fortnight plus. It's disgusting to me. That is the worst, most egregious part of this is that papers that had him front and center for the last 3 weeks, now nothing about him. Nothing about him. He's just become at the most maybe a side piece where they, do a little commentary about how sad the whole thing was. It's saddening. But here's what I want to ask you, brother George, about this whole thing. You were at the vigil for this guy. Oh, also, sorry. Before I carry on, it wasn't just the plagiarism. They claim that he made up things in his resume. And what's coming to light now, I'll play us a video in a bit. It will shock you, brother George. What's coming to light now was a lot of the things that they were claiming that he didn't do and that he lied about to gain his position and would only have only got away with because he was black and it was it was due to positive discrimination or affirmative action that all of these lies were overlooked. All of that is coming out in the wash as true. He actually did run a marathon in however long he said. He actually was part of a football team, a semi-professional football team. This guy he lived a good life. He actually lived a very fulfilled, eventful life that he said. And now that's all coming out, and you're not hearing anything about it. Brother George, you were at the vigil. Can you tell us what that was like?
Yeah, that took place on Monday at Trafalgar Square. I had to be there. I had to be there. I had lots of work on. I had several meetings to take care of in the early part of the day, so I wasn't there when I think the speeches were done in his honor. I got there after around 7. So earlier on in the day, it's reported there were around 30,000 people there in Trafalgar Square, all
Wow.
paying their respects, you know, of all persuasions. Um, when I got there, there was still a lot of people there, but I had a chance to move around. So I was taking photographs of some of the uh, little dedications that people had. I had a chance to read them as well. Um, and it was just a powerful moment. There were many people in the community that I knew, that I bumped into. Everyone was there. You had people of all racial persuasions, and it's a real indictment of the way in which the media can be weaponized. That's what we're seeing here. Many of the messages talked about that. There were slogans such as, white lives matter. Do white lives really matter, or white lies matter, rather? Sorry, white lies matter.
Mm,
So, white lies, white privilege, white perspective is still more valuable than black life.
mm,
They
mm,
can hound you to the point where you're at despair, at your lowest ebb. And I believe one of his colleagues actually reached out to him on the Friday, asked him to go out to watch cricket. This is what's been reported to me. But he felt he couldn't go out. He felt he couldn't step out of the house um, because people would know him, recognize him.
mm,
And, it's in these kind of like small moments when people are alone. Everyone can go through moments of like really deep sense of depression momentarily, but there was nobody there at that kind of moment to actually stop him from taking his own life, because he didn't see a way out. He couldn't see a way out. Um, and even though at that time, obviously he's been exonerated now. I didn't know what the details were before he passed away, and it's only very recently that they've come out and completely exonerated him. My feeling is just looking at him, right? This was a beautiful soul,
mm,
a bright soul, is the impression that I get. Someone who really wanted to make a difference in the world and who was in a position to possibly do so. But of course, people with issues surrounding race can't tolerate to see a black person in a position of authority like that.
mm,
I had a chance to have a look at the news recently, and one of the people who criticized him was a academic called Nathan Coffness. I might be
mm.
mispronouncing his surname, but he was one
Yeah,
of the
you're right.
main vocal voices who denounced him and accused him of plagiarism. Now, it turns out he's been suspended from his post at Gunst University,
Mm-hmm.
and he is someone who is a self-confessed. He describes himself as a race realist.
Mm,
We know what that means. These are the people who went after him,
Mm-hmm.
the beautiful soul who wanted to change the world. And I believe he still will by his example. He's touched people's hearts. He's made people see how corrupt and manipulated the mainstream media actually is,
Mm.
and how it is a tool of propaganda. He's exposed them. We've lost him, in a sense. His life is no more, but he was a bright star who
Mm.
burned brightly, and he touched a lot of people in his position at Cambridge, and I'm sure he won't be the last. For someone like myself, oh, by the way, this is just an incidental thing,
Mm-hmm.
but one of my friends reached out to me recently. Um, she's a counselor, and she wanted to go to the vigil with me, but I was busy on the Monday, so I touched base with her actually earlier on today, and she was telling me she wanted to go with me, and she wondered how I would feel about the loss of Professor Jason Arday because she thought I looked like him. Now, when I've actually seen some of his photographs, I can see what people are talking about.
Yeah,
She thinks that he's like a light-skinned version of myself, which is a bit hilarious.
I can see it too.
When I actually look at him, um, I see someone who looks typically Ghanaian. You can see the Ghanaian flag there. So family, these are the photographs that I took whilst I was there. And so you can see the people there. You can see the dedications on the monument. Um, and you've got people of all kinds of persuasions, who are there. Indian people, Sikh people, obviously black people of multiple persuasions, also white people of all generations, young, old, um, grandmothers, grandfathers, people who are clearly allies, people who are in the movement,
Mm.
academics. There were many people there. And so you can see that even though this is after 7 p.m., there are still a lot of people there. People were
Mm.
there all day. You know, you can see the placards, rest in power, Professor Jason Arday.
Yeah, I can see what they mean by he looked like you. Like the lighter version, as you said. Yeah, the
Yeah,
lighter version, as you said. Mm.
with a goatee.
Yeah, with a goatee.
Yeah.
Um, look at this note here.
Right. Okay. Now I've actually sort of like copied the notes, and if you don't mind, I would like to just read it to the family here.
Yes, please,
The
please do.
bits that we can actually see. It says, "Your voice is a reverb that finally made sense of sentences in books. At 18, your dedication, witnessed by family, friends, teachers, and higher powers, they recognized your brilliance. Many degrees later, you became the youngest Black professor at the University of Cambridge. At 37, your knowledge flashed. You ran 35 times, marathons, endurance. You flicked the switch to inspirational bob lights in the heads of Blacks and neurodiverse kids. You are proof that they can be brilliant too." That's what it says there.
Amen. Amen. And that's really what it was about. That's what these creatures are annoyed about. It's that we're not allowed um to be brilliant. We're not allowed to be brilliant, which is not
No,
because I think it's like you said, there are allies here. There are people here who don't look like yourself or myself, and they're decent people. They're decent human beings, flesh and blood like us. But there are some people, there are some people of a different persuasion to us who are threatened by just our mere existence. We can people can explore that to the cows come home. but it is a phenomenon, and that's really what threatens them. And we win by by not being phased. We win by actually doubling down in our brilliance, doubling down in our research of our history and of ourselves. Know thyself, as we say. Thank you very much. Kel, I don't know how to say your name, Quel Neri Mra. Sorry about that if I butchered that. I definitely have butchered it. He says our biggest hurdle to growth as a people is widespread ignorance, driven by mental colonization. Thank you, Trill, for reaching the common folk and connecting us with experts like Brother George. Yes, definitely. It's my pleasure. Head over to the Black Secret on YouTube and hit subscribe and follow them on Instagram. You won't regret it. Thank you for helping us get that much closer to our target. Um, we got another message from um Lindy Nile, I think. Indy Nile with £5. A super chat saying keep telling them, Lion. Thank you. The line tonight is our brother George. So thank you very much for that contribution, the both of you. Brother George, can I just quickly play something? People might think I'm making it up that
Absolutely, yes.
yeah, let me just quickly play you guys something just in case, because it doesn't really matter. Let me make the point. It doesn't really matter whether Jason Arday was even lying about some of the things in his resume or not. It doesn't matter. Why should he have been just the university academic? Why should he have been the face for corruption for the last 2 3 weeks in this country? In a country when we have, well, let me just play this video. This guy makes the point very well. In a country where we have some of the types of people that this guy is about to display for us. Let me show you guys this just very quickly. Um here we go. Um, excuse me. Okay. All right, here we go. Full start there. Hmm. Um. Okay. Okay. Cool. Nope, not that one. Right. Well, this is the article. This is the article that uh that this is the video you're about to see is based on. Let me stop sharing that and actually show you the video. Let's- Okay, Jason Arday smears. Bless you, bro. Jason Arday
Thank you.
smears fall apart. Okay, here we go.
Arday was hounded to death after a media campaign so intense, so vitriolic, so unrelenting that it went beyond what you'd expect if he was, I don't know, a cabinet minister guilty of grave corruption or harm to others. But he wasn't a cabinet minister. He was a university professor. A university professor the vast majority of people had never previously heard of, and he certainly wasn't guilty of grave corruption or harm to others. Now, according to an analysis by the media watchdog News Corp, 249 articles were published about Jason Arday in just 22 days before he died. By contrast, they say, the UK media mentioned Peter Mandelson 119 times in the weeks after the Epstein files were released. In 2023, they additionally say, a white Cambridge professor named William O'Reilly was found guilty of plagiarism, and only the Financial Times covered it. There were two key claims made to present Jason Arday as a serial liar and a fantasist. One concerned his claim that he ran 30 marathons in 35 days, and another is his claim that he played semi-professional football. These claims were ridiculed and attacked extensively across the media. Toby Young in The Spectator used the marathons as a central example in his article on the 31st of July, headlined, Professor Arday is the gift that keeps on giving. He used this particular example, running marathons, to call him an Ali G-like character. Giles Corrin in The Times said the claims took Arday into genuine playground territory, comparing it to a school friend who claimed his dentist father had been on the first moon landing, before saying it becomes difficult to tell where Arday's truth ends and bullshit begins. Tom Slater for Spiked, in a piece headlined "The Not So Talented Mr. Arday," described him as a plagiarist, a fabulist, an authoritarian, as well as a DEI princeling, mocking the marathon claims as part of a cascade of bullshit, as he puts it. Well, new analysis by the brilliant journalist Imran Mullah at Middle East Eye suggests, in fact, that both the claims about the marathons and semi-professional football are true. On the marathon, the outlet reports, Arday does in fact appear to have completed the challenge, which involved raising money for two charities, Shooting Star Children's Hospice and a homeless charity shelter. They note the reporting of the Richmond and Twickenham Times on the 16th of June 2010 that he was an energetic lecturer who was set to push his body to the limit by running the London Marathon route every day for 15 days, followed by a run from Piccadilly to Teddington and back again for the second part of the challenge.
Chat, I just want to quickly say something. You heard that. This is what I think we have it worse in the United Kingdom when it comes to as melanated people, when it comes to what we have to deal with. I've said this before. I'd much rather a system like you guys have it in America. I really would, where you know where the line is. You know that when I wake up in the morning, I know the BS I got to deal with. I know, I know the country I'm living in. I know that it was only a couple decades ago that I was allowed, my parents were allowed to be human in this country, counted human enough to vote in this country. I like that. That's better because I can deal with that. I've got something tangible that I'm fighting against. Here you get gaslighting. You get gaslighting. You get this much more insidious. What you tend to get is are dog whistles, constant dog whistles. Listen to that individual talking about Jason Arday was the Ali G. There's nothing Ali G. If you know who Ali G it was, Ali G is like what would be the equivalent for you guys in America listening? Um he's a caricature of blackness. You guys know Ali G anyway. You should know Ali G. The same guy who did Borat, okay, is a caricature of blackness, okay? But there's nothing Ali G-esque about Jason Arday. Okay, fine, he's got very long uh dreads, get very long braided hair. That's about it. You hear him speak, he's very softly spoken, very well spoken, and yet people are going around, respected so-called journalists now, talking about the allegification of academics. This is what we go through in the country. And um should we say, hang on a minute, then the next thing you know, oh, you're playing a race card. It's a very sick kind of different level of racism that we face in this country, it's just sick. It's just sick. I'm just gonna hit play. I don't unless Brother George wants to come in there. Okay.
They interview Arday, who discusses being taken to a homeless shelter by his mother at the age of 17 and wanting to do something to help people who are homeless and badly housed, adding, "I've been training now for a few months now, and I feel confident that I will complete all the marathons within reasonable times, but I'm under no illusion it's going to be tough." I found his Just Giving page from the time. It was headlined 30 marathons in 35 days, in which he says the target is to raise £5,000 for these two chosen charities. It shows he in fact raised £6,285 thanks to donations by 217 supporters. Middle East Eye also notes on a story which appeared in My London at the time, headlined, "Teacher preps himself to run 30 marathons in 35 days."
So these so-called journalists, guys, think about it. Journalists now, okay, this is all work they could have easily done. There are public record articles about this man's achievements that were used to lambast him as a fraud and who didn't deserve his place in Cambridge. You don't have to do that much work. And this actually links to what people like Brother George and Robin Walker at the Black Secret do. People like myself do. People like the King's Monologue. People like Without History. People like the late Mr. Imhotep. It links to what we do. It doesn't take that much digging. It takes you to not believe. It takes you to come to terms, first of all, with the fact that we live in a a world run by little people whose fathers and mothers and grandfathers were little people and felt the need to hide away the achievements of people who didn't look like them. It takes you coming to terms with that. Once you come to terms with that, all you have to do is a little bit of digging and you find the truth. If you're in denial, though, if you believe, oh no, no, rule Britannia, oh, the white man was pure, and we the pilgrims went over and started civilization and did all this, and the word of and using God to back all that rubbish up, all that rah rah. We only freed the slaves because we were such a good Christian nation, and not because the slaves were kicking our asses every other day of the week, and it was getting too much for us. If you believe all of that rubbish, of course you're not going to do any bit of digging. You're not gonna listen to the folks who are saying no, Egypt was black. You lied about it. Uh, the Moors did cross the ocean well before Columbus did, and people have been crossing the oceans long before white people came along and said it was okay to do so. There's evidence for it. You're not gonna want to do any bit of digging because you have that veil of white is right. But this is all they had to do. Bare minimum digging, scratching the surface, and it it would come to light that he wasn't lying. At least, even if you thought the claims were fantastic, that's all you could say. They're fantastic. They sound fantastic, but actually, oh, he actually did do this. That's all. That's all. Sorry, I'll stop interrupting now. We'll get to the end of this as there's another bombshell to come.
He said he's taking on the challenge of a lifetime by attempting to complete 30 marathons in 35 days between the 19th of July and 22nd of August. Adding, Jason has been training since November and follows a grueling schedule, running 7 miles from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. and another 7 miles between 10 p.m. and midnight. In between, he teaches at the college. They further report an article in the Richmond and Twickenham Times reporting he'd completed his first marathon, writing, Jason Arday set off from Clapham at 6 a.m. yesterday to run the 26-mile course, which took in the sights of central London and Teddington before finishing in Putney. And it included a photo of Arday running. They further report this is Middle East Eye, Your Local Guardian story on the 13th of August, which reported that the end is in sight for an energetic lecturer who has nearly reached his target of running 30 marathons in 35 days. Crucially, Shooting Stars Director of Fundraising and Marketing, Kim Darton, was reported as cycling alongside Arday on his 24th marathon and said, I stayed with Jason throughout and we shared life stories through the night. I'm stunned by this splendid man and found my moments with him tremendously inspiring. Then on the 25th of August, Middle East Eye report that the Richmond Twickenham Times said that after completing his marathon, he endured daily ice baths and a hairline fracture to his leg. That is a key claim, by the way, which has been challenged.
And that's where the claim that he broke his leg came from. That's where the claim that, oh, he said he broke his leg. No, he had a hairline fracture. Now, if you have a fracture, it's as good as breaking your leg. Yeah, a person can casually refer to that, and rightly so. Say, I broke my leg. Okay, fine. If you dig deeper, it's a hairline, it's a fracture, but fine. It's not enough to call someone a liar over for 3 years. And kill them and drive them to suicide over, but they parodied that and said he broke his leg. Okay.
About the hairline fracture. Middle East Eye notes it's been falsely characterised as a broken leg, for example, by the Daily Mail. Now, Middle East Eye also quote another friend he spoke to a socialist worker who says, by the time I knew him, he'd already raised loads of money for charity. He organised lots of events. In 2010, I was with Jason on the last of the 30 marathons he ran in 35 days. She's also quoted as saying, lots of people participated because he did the same route every day. A lot of the other students would meet up with him and run some of the way with him. A whole bunch of us ran with him for the second half of his last marathon. We all ended up in Sloane Square in Chelsea. I've got photographs of him with the various T-shirts he wore emblazoned with the charities he'd been raising money for. I can only vouch for the things that I know to be true, and the
Wow.
also reported another claim about playing semi-professional football. They did establish.
What's that, Brother George?
No, just saying, wow,
Yeah.
He's exactly what I thought he was, like a beautiful soul.
Yeah.
He just wanted to help and make a difference in the world,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
He did, in fact, play for 2 semi-professional clubs, Walton and Hersham FC and Lewisham Borough FC. They find he was listed as a goalkeeper in Lewisham Borough FC's first team, and was referenced in a report on a match in October 2018. The writer Nels Abbey also posted a video of him in a changing room surrounded by other players.
In Gaza, hunger...
Oh, please, come on now. Come on. Seriously.
Here is an example of how the smear campaign works. An obsessive focus on, again, a minor figure with no power influence of any meaningful description, in which anything and everything was just thrown into the mix in an attempt to completely discredit and character assassinate in a total way. That's what this aimed to do. Every aspect of his life, that's what it aimed to do. And this was all initiated by an academic named Nathan Kofnas, who believes in so-called racial realism and who argues that blacks, as he calls black people, would disappear from almost all high-profile positions outside of sports and entertainment without affirmative action. I want to be clear. Britain does not practice affirmative action. It doesn't exist in Britain. I just want to compare this saga to someone else. Rachel Reeves. She was Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Rachel Reeves was the second most powerful politician in this country for some time. Listen to this about her now.
Unlike Jason Arday, she was white and she was powerful. Indeed, she became the second most powerful person in the country, literally in charge of the British economy. This was as major a public figure as you'll get, other than the Prime Minister himself. In October 2023, the Financial Times found she'd plagiarised in her book more than 20 times. And then there was her CV. In a magazine interview back in 2021, which she herself posted on Twitter, she said, "I spent a decade working as an economist at the Bank of England and loved it." At Labour conference in 2024, she said, "I spent the best part of a decade as an economist at the Bank of England." That wasn't true. She worked at the Bank of England for 5.5 years, nowhere near a decade, and not the best part of a decade. Her LinkedIn profile also described her role at HBOS, Bank of Scotland, as economist. Now, after claims from multiple former colleagues that she worked in a mundane support department at the bank, she changed her title from economist to retail banking. Her defense at the time, she says she worked in retail banking, covering various areas, drawing on her background as an economist. Her LinkedIn has been updated to reflect that. You can claim to draw on whatever background you want in a job, but the fact is she worked in the retail banking department and changed her title from economist to retail banking only after scrutiny.
This woman was working at she was at the kiosk. She said she's an economist. She's one of she LARPed her way to become the second most powerful person in this country. And when it all came out, nothing. But what are you doing over there, Blackie? What are you doing over there, black man?
Was there media coverage of this? Yes. Was there anything even approaching a 22-day-long unrelenting scandal with 249 articles, including front-page splashes, constant push notifications, constant new investigations, constant character assassinations on the scale that Jason Arday suffered? No. Did this force her to resign? No. And it certainly didn't drive her to a death. There's nothing remotely of this sort, even though she was someone of actual power and influence. Someone running the British economy on paper, not a minor figure that nobody had heard of. The vast majority of people hadn't heard of. 95% of people hadn't heard of.
Yeah, I'll just stop it there because we all get the point. We get the point. And I just wanted people to see that. I just wanted people to see what we're going through as melanated folk in this country, in the United Kingdom, and across the world. So I might trademark this. I might use it as part of my Costa Compton tag. Keep the chip on your shoulder. Keep the chip on your shoulders, folks. It is survival, because don't let anybody tell you that you're seeing things or hearing things in this YT supremacist world that we're living in. Do not let anybody tell you that you're just seeing things and hearing things. No, not at all. Keep that chip on your shoulder, okay? Because this is the world we're living in. They could have Brother George. They could have researched all of this whilst he was alive. So why didn't the media research this and say and shout it to the rafters and say, actually, no, this is all rubbish. He did do all these things.
I believe his publishers pushed back a little bit. He's got a book coming out soon. It's either out now or it was going to be, or it's going to be published very soon. They pushed back a bit, but you can clearly see by the extraordinary numbers of articles that came out about him that smeared his name, that attacked his reputation, that it was coordinated. It was a coordinated attack to undermine his character across major news outlets and platforms. The numbers are just ridiculous. I actually had it up here. And so this is published by UK Fact Checked Politics. Some of the numbers were in that particular sort of like YouTube video. 188 articles published about Jason in just 9 days. 249 articles were published in 22 days. The Times and the Sunday Times published 44 articles about Professor Jason Arday. The Telegraph published 43 articles. The Daily Mail published 24. The Spectator published around 21 articles. The Guardian, most of these newspapers that I've just mentioned are considered to be right-wing newspapers, perhaps with the exception of the Sunday Times, which has more of a neutral kind of reputation. But even the Guardian, that's considered to be more left-wing and progressive, published 19 disparaging articles. The Daily Express published more than 10 articles, and The Sun 9 articles. Now, usually when this kind of thing happens, there is someone pretty high up who has an agenda. Obviously, we're getting into conspiracy theories here, but as Trill has just demonstrated, he was innocent. He really was extraordinary. He really did all of these things. And as you can see, the power of the media, once they get into gear, the very fact that you had like local reporters who actually reported on his marathon achievements as well, the very fact that his students, went on some of these, marathons with him, at times there were people who knew, but they don't have a platform, they don't have a voice, they can't really speak out. Not when you've got this many concerted articles in a very short space of time, repeating a constructed narrative, which, as we've now found out, isn't even true. That is real power and that is real abuse. And that's what people are seeing. That real power is being used in a very abusive way. And to what end?
Yeah.
He was a black guy. He was brilliant. He was a Cambridge professor. And the guy who accused him of plagiarism, Nathan Coffness, who regards himself race realist.
A race realist, yeah.
He's a racist. He's calling himself a race realist. Like that makes it any better. He's a professor, but he's not at Cambridge. He's not the one at Cambridge. And he believes that black people are naturally inferior. What's a black man doing at Cambridge? And at that, a black man who decides to, I think he had cane rows and then he grew locks. What's such a person doing at Cambridge? He shouldn't be there. And clearly there are many powerful people in academia who are connected with the media who don't want anyone with our kind of aesthetic to have that kind of profile. And so they abused their power and disparaged his reputation in such an intense way. And the irony of it is, as well, people from the UK in the Middle Ages used to travel abroad to get their education. And one of the places that they used to go before places like Cambridge and Oxford were established or had the reputation that they had, is some of them actually went to Timbuktu, which was a university city. Africa had many prestigious universities and had many international students who would come and visit. There's another one in Morocco as well.
Yeah.
They would go there. They would go there. So, we have always demonstrated the highest academic standards, even going as far back as ancient Kemet with our mystery schools and systems that taught all kind of subject matter which people would master. We are a learned people, but some people can't take it because they've constructed a false narrative, and they really can't take it when a black person achieves the highest accolades at the most prestigious Western institutions. And it really does bring to mind that there is a real need for, Jason Ardays. We need people who are in the sort of like academic milieu, the mainstream academic milieu, but we also need people on the outside. That's why we exist. That's why Trillblack is doing what he's doing. That's why we have the Black Secret. We need that. Perhaps Professor Jason Arday was just too beautiful a soul to stay with us. But they boxed him in. They trapped him. And for a brief moment, he thought he didn't have any other outlets or opportunities.
Yeah.
And there was nobody there in that moment to stop him from committing a irreversible act. And we've lost him in that sense. But his spirit lives on. And we are here to carry on the work. And there will be other Jason Ardays who will be in such positions. And it's now going to be much harder for them to get away with these kind of lies. They've been exposed.
Yeah.
And the work carries on.
It does, brother George. We've not got much long to go. I'm sorry about this. I know I've taken you longer than we agreed.
No problem. We had a whole slate lined up, and I think we've only covered like 2 areas.
Yeah. But we'll get to the centerpiece in a minute. But we will get to it. So Darius, thank you so much, Darius 0974. Thank you for that super chat. It's pretty much covered the target. But he says keep spreading the knowledge. Everyone like, subscribe, and contribute what you can. Thanks, bro. This education is priceless. Thank you for your $50 super chat donation, bro. I really appreciate that. You just mentioned you talked about our own universities, and once upon a time our own institutions were what people sought out. Okay. And I pray that somehow we get back to that level, we get back to that stage, because that brings me to where we really want to go tonight, the Olmecs. Jason Arday's story is really linked with the story of Ivan van Sertima. Story of let me put the proper titles here. Dr. Jason Arday linked with Dr. Ivan van Sertima's story. It's apparent. It's apparent because what do I mean? The link is apparent in the sense that you have an individual who nobody believed because for no other factor than that he was black and he didn't deserve credulity because he was black. Okay. And then you have Dr. Ivan van Sertima, who did some stellar research, stellar work. But really, because this man is not presenting in the way that we view academics, Dr. Ivan van Sertima would slip in and out. He was very charismatic, very charismatic. I've never seen a speaker, an academic speaker like him. You're listening to him, he's giving you information that anyone else would say it, would be giving you, and you would fall asleep. But he's giving this stuff to you, and you're thinking, wow, I want to do what he does. I want to research what he's researching. But in his life, he wasn't taking that, he was completely calumniated. He was completely defamed. His research was gone over with a fine tooth comb in a very stupid, silly, petty way that no other academics' work is gone over. Um, and and it really was because of who he was and what he was saying. Okay, you had Martin Bernal say pretty much the same thing within the context of Africa and ancient Egypt and the Levant. And yes, he did receive backlash, but not as much as Ivan van Sertima, because Ivan van Sertima completed the set. He wasn't just telling people blacks were great, are great, uh, but he was also himself the messenger, a black himself. So he received double fold the vitriol. Okay, so it's the same thing in my mind. You have this phenomenon with Jason Arday, and you have it with Dr. Nava Vasetima, not believed because of who they are. And it's the same with Dr. Henrik Clark, Dr. G.R. James, who were saying the same thing. The classical world got everything from blacks. They got everything from blacks. I just want to take it back to Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, bro, George. Um, I don't know if you've ever read his book cover to cover. They came before Columbus, but is that where you started when you were looking at the the Olmec heads? Is that what got you into? Because I know you have a different perspective to Robin Walker as to the Olmec heads and the Olmec civilization. Do you want to go ahead and share that with us?
Yes. So I don't know if people can see this.
There we go. Yeah, we can see that. That's the original edition. That's the original cover.
You know what? I was looking in this and I wasn't sure whether I think this is the first edition. I got
Wow.
lucky.
Wow.
I got lucky. And I think I purchased this in 1996 in a bookshop in Brixton. It's no longer there. A friend of mine actually ran that bookshop, and I just bought lots of books. Probably I bought this for maybe £10. I don't think you can get it for tenner now. Certainly not this edition.
Wow.
And yes, I read it. But I first actually came across him in a Pan-African sort of like magazine comic book. And I've still got, I can't remember what it's called, but I still have a couple of copies of it going back to around 1992, a very long time ago. And it was this British sort of like magazine-sized comic book. I just can't remember the name of it at the moment. I still have a couple of copies of it, and they did like cartoons on Malcolm X, comic book sort of like strips on Malcolm X and different people. And right in the center of one of the editions was a double-page spread article on Ivan van Sertima. And he was talking about all of these, you know, his work, the African presence in America. They came before Columbus. And it was just a two-page article, sort of like two A4 size pages, a nice picture of him, a picture of a colossal Olmec head, and, you know, a nice article on him. He was a professor at Rutgers University in America, amongst other places. And yeah, and so that was like my introduction. But also as well, one of my uncles was an independent journalist who was semi-famous in Ghana. He started off in Ghana on a very popular cultural magazine called The Drum. And he's interviewed Nelson Mandela and various other people as well. Really interesting man to sit down and talk to, because many journalists who are in the know very often have contacts and very often have stories that they can share with you, which they may not be able to do on the record. And one my uncle, Uncle Cameron, the journalist, actually interviewed Ivan van Sertima around the same time. So, you know, I was having the conversation with him in his home, and we were catching up, and he said, yeah, I've interviewed him. And he played the interview. which was really interesting. You know, people like Ivan Van Sertima, you know, they went through a lot of struggles as well. And he talked about that in the interview which he had with my uncle. And it was really revealing. You know, his attitude was that, you know, and again, it ties in with this notion of white supremacy. It's really, what is the term? It's white fragility. Its foundation is fragile.
Yeah.
I'm look at this academic who accused Professor Jason Arday of plagiarism. It turns out none of that is true. He claims that he's a race realist. He's fragile. He can't see a black person who's actually more accomplished than him in a higher status. And so what does he do? He acts with incredible psychological violence to try and undermine him and destroy him. You know, there is that side of academia as well. Sort of like a really perverse kind of a competitiveness. There is racism in high academia. It's not the pure field which we, you know, it's presented as being just about, you know, achieving knowledge. No, it's about suppression. It's about suppression. It's about the narrative. It's about getting people to believe what you want them to believe, irrespective of what the actual evidences say. People like Ivan Van Sertima followed the evidence. That's what he did. And, you know, he's, you know, the ancestor's no longer here to defend his position or what he actually wrote. And there are many modern commentators who have taken different positions and criticized him without properly reading the book. It's a very thick book.
Yes.
They've read critiques and you could say like the Cliff Notes version of a kind of like biased perception against him, which predominates. You know, a myth which predominates about Ivan Van Sertima is that he claimed that the Olmec civilization was a black civilization. He never said that. He followed the evidence. He claimed that around 19 to 20% of the population was African or African looking. And what's that based on? It's based on the archaeological research of two key burial grounds where the skeletons and the cranial indexes all point to African types of populations. That means the other 80% were typical of what you would expect of Mesoamerican characteristics. But here's the thing. Many of the prominent statuary, the colossal statues are, I mean, if people don't think they look African, if people don't think that those statues look African, I suggest you go to, and this is a UK reference, you need to go to Specsavers. I think you need to change your the prescription of your glasses. Because the truth of the matter is that, again, a bit like the Egyptian wall paintings, these are incredible masterworks. I mean, you can see them on the screen there, particularly the one by Trill, which is magnificently carved. There is absolutely no doubt that these are profoundly African-looking, continental African-looking representations, and deliberately so. The other thing as well, similar to the Egyptian wall paintings, even though it's, you could say it's in a style, but there's so much individuality. The people who actually produced these particular statues were master craftsmen, and there is no doubt that they wanted them to have a certain particular appearance. I've actually put this point on other shows that critiques about, oh, the features are blunt. The reason why the nose is so broad is because, they didn't have the proper tools to represent the appearances the way that they wanted. Therefore, this is just symbolic. That's not close to being true, because I come from an artistic background. To work in stone like this, you're literally carving away, which means that the original rock has to be bigger than the final results you
Yes,
want to
that's a
use.
good point.
And Triller's actually done a really good job of analyzing it. The pictures which you're seeing at the moment are from the sort of like portraits, face on. But if you look at some of them in profile, some of them have what you would consider to be extreme prognatism, which you don't find with typical Mesoamerican populations, unless they have some kind of element of African blood. And even then, it's not going to be to that degree, Plus, as well, they are all very individual if you look at them closely enough. These are masterworks. But why actually represent your culture with these kind of features in colossal form if the people who you're representing have no significance in your culture? So the first thing is that, yes, they definitely do look African. If you're being honest, they can pass through many different kinds of Africans, continental Black Africans on the African continent today
They
and
claim
in the
this
past.
one. They claim, and it's it's the rebuttals. I often say, sometimes you know the truth of an argument not by the argument itself, but the kind of rebuttals that are put forward against that argument. That's really how you know, okay, is that the response that we're really gonna be taken serious here? Okay, there must be some there. There must be something going on. When people say that these heads are heads of um some species of monkeys in South America, like this, literally called El Negro.
Jaguars.
They say that this is a monkey. It's not really a man's head. Okay, that's when, for me, when I heard that, I was like, okay, right, game over, game over. I mean, you're having it's just it's ridiculous. I mean, complete with the hairline. This is my hairline when I had hair, you know.
You have to laugh. You have to laugh. Try not to go for the bait of getting bitter, because they are going to lose badly. The evidence is against them. The evidence is against them. We're talking about 13% of the skeletons that were found in the burial mounds have strong continental African affinities. They can use terms like Negroid, not Mongoloid. These are terms that I tend not to use, but I'll drop them maybe once or twice so that people know what we're talking about. There is hard evidence of the population. And bear this in mind, I'm not sure what the UK population is of Black people that are in the UK, but it's far less than 13%. And actually, Van Setema talks about around 18 to 20%. And the reason for that is that those kind of like extra 6 to 7% of the skeletons found tend to have, you could say, almost like an admixed quality. And so your 13% are people who look like Bobby Lashley. And then your 7% are people who look a bit like Terrence Howard. Now, the difference between me and Robin is that on 2 counts, Robin will only use the 13%, because he knows that people will try and waffle and dispute the additional 6 or 7%.
Right.
But my argument is I'm going to put that in the mix. Why? Because if you're saying that there was no sort of like contact with the old world, with Black Africa, and the New World, Mesoamerica and South America, then why are there people who look admixed with African heritage also
But they
found
take,
in the archaeological record?
yeah,
That actually speaks to a society which is becoming integrated. And if you look at those numbers, we're talking about, relatively speaking, a population statistic which is similar to the African American community in America as a minority. And I know that number changes um, over over time, but 21% around that is what people estimate the African American population to be. And we can see how significant an influence they've had on
yeah,
American culture and society,
yeah,
even though they're a minority. Now, what Van Settemer was postulating, and what I support and what I believe makes sense, is that clearly this minority within the Olmec population had a profound influence on that culture and society. Otherwise, why would the Olmec people produce effigies of them in the most colossal state? And historians believe that there was some kind of religious association with these heads or practices. Um, I believe some of them have like complex connections where sort of like a priest could allegedly possibly speak, and it would come out of some other area of the statue, the colossal statue. This points to the fact that the individuals that the statues were actually based on had a very significant position and role within that society. And they looked this way. You know, Robin's take is that they were venerated visitors. My take is that they were probably integrated within the society in a similar way that you can have African Americans integrated in the current North American culture in a similar sense. And I believe the very fact that these colossal heads probably had some kind of religious significance points to the fact that they were members of that society and culture. But even if you want to go with Robin's take, you still have to answer the question: what were they doing there? It means that the Mesoamerican Indians were aware of black types and interacted with them, venerated them, celebrated them, and viewed them in high esteem. I just go one step further and say they held high positions within that society. So we're not
brother,
saying, yeah.
Brother George, I would say, I would raise you and say, I think they did seed uh that civilization. I think they actually did seed that civilization. I think there's enough um to show that I think there's enough to evidence that. I think there's enough to evidence that. I will not even might, I will have to do a third video on that. Kamji versus someone who I didn't mention earlier along the roster of black content creators out there, but you're not really doing black historical research if you're not doing it. You know, like if you're not going as deep as brothers like Kamji versus going, because Kamji versus is showing, he's unearthing deep academic papers that from Mexicans, showing that, you know, this this civilization did come in the large part from Africa. This all the things, you know, that we hail about the civilization did come from Africa. But I do also understand where you're coming from as well. I just wanted to show people this head. It's from Necrotis, which is northern Egypt. They say the 26th dynasty, but that is really, really, really close to the 25th dynasty. So I would give or take there. I wouldn't say that's set in stone. Whether this scarab is from the 26th dynasty, I would say it's from 25th dynasty, and that's important because that's around the time or period that we start seeing some of these sites pop up in Mesoamerica. Now they do a bit of finagling and they say um they add on a massive margin of error when I was
Mm.
looking into it for the video. And for me that was interesting because for the longest they espoused the view that actually this stuff was burgeoning right around the time that the 25th dynasty in Africa would have been burgeoning. uh, but when I believe they pattern up, when they start when people start drawing links, I believe, and it's very conspiratorial, I believe that's when they start saying, well, actually, we're not sure about that date anymore. Actually, new evidence has come to light about this, that, and the other. So, in any case, all I can say is, guys, if you haven't got yourself a copy of They Come Before Columbus, make sure to do that because there's far more in that 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 than we can even cover tonight. Um yeah, sorry, but that's all I interrupted to say. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. Kanjiverse is doing some really interesting work. So the way
Mm,
that I look at it is there are three propositions. Look, um, uh, the colossal statues look fundamentally continental African. They are not the only statues. Sometimes people only talk about them, but there are also intermediate statues, there are terracotta statues, there are miniature statues as well,
mm,
all showing very diverse ranges of phenotypes. Some typical of what you would think a Mesoamerican should look like, a Mexican should look like, others all the way to, the most famous of the Olmecs statues looking profoundly black. But there are also others that have, curly hair texture, which look a little bit like Terrence Howard with afro texture, So there's the hair texture combined with the appearances at various different scales. But the one thing that's consistent is that with the colossal statues, they all look fundamentally black. Now, you can go down the route which you suggested, which is that they were a major founding influence.
mm.
So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can say,
let's say that.
but there is no doubt, there is hard archaeological evidence of the bones, and you can't really fudge that. Um, uh, Two things. First of all, you have the date 650 BC. That's one of the dates, and you talk about the margin of error. Some people can put it back as far back as 1200 BC as well.
Mm,
But that date is very significant, in particular with Van Settemer's analysis, because he was looking at the attire, the headgear of the colossal statues, and they do bear. And so you got like the helmets, and then you've got the hair as well, which kind of looks like they're in braids. Plus, combine that with the features. What do you have? You have someone who looks like a show, a Cushitic soldier from that particular time period. And
yep.
so it's very interesting. And so it does actually align. I have no problem with that whatsoever. My foundation and the reason why we speak like this is because we know of the counter arguments.
Mm,
And what we want people to do is we're challenging people to try and explain away why there is so much artifacts, not just the colossal statues, but artifacts which show so much uh, parity and similarity to African continental phenotypes. Argue that away. There is no doubt that they were prominent, sophisticated. and had a really positive impact on the Olmec civilization. Now, the other reason why we frame it this way is because the archaeological evidence so far, it is around 20%, which
Mm.
means they are a minority in that civilization. Could they have been the teachers of these people in a similar way that they taught the Greeks and other Near Eastern civilizations the great wisdom, technologies, and
Mm.
understandings? I believe that's possible as well. But another reason why we're framing it this way is we're not trying to take anything away from anyone
Yes.
else.
Yes.
We are asking the hard questions and we're putting it back at them. And we
Yeah.
know that this isn't easy, but there was contact before Columbus with Black
And
Africa.
one of those hard questions is not even why you have this hair practice that you can see deliberately carved into one of these Olmec heads. That's a surface level question. The question that you should be asking when you see this Olmec head is, why did it take Ivan van Sertima to reveal this image to the world? Why was it that it took Ivan van Sertima to say, guys, there's more to this story than us just claiming a few heads look African. They're not showing you the full profiles. They're not showing you the full things. And he was the first person to say, "Look, I've taken pictures, taken 360 pictures of these things. Look at this. Look at this. This is this is what they're not showing you. And there's more. And then you have some of the miniature figurines that the can't remember what his name was now, the white individual found, and he was showing that everywhere. And they tried to discredit that as not being genuine, but they are genuine finds of these little miniature depictions of Africoid people or Negroid people. So yeah, there's definitely more to it, and there's apart from statues, go and watch my video on it, my two-part video on it, and go and check out Kamji versus deep research citing academics on both sides of the Atlantic who they like to silence. They don't discredit them. They just don't talk about these academics who have written papers showing the linguistic links, showing uh, um, uh, the uh, the links from the plants and sort of horticultural links. They lied for the longest that the maize was introduced by the Portuguese into West Africa. No, no. History shows that actually the maize was in Africa, in West Africa, well before the Portuguese came. It was in West Africa well before the Portuguese came. I got a video in the works, God willing, about that, just about that issue, because it's a petty. It might seem petty, but that's a key to the story as well. How did they get there? Come on now, guys. Shout out to you, word of mouth guy. Um, Even if you're not being ironic, yeah, I'll take I'll take your money anyway. He said, "You're mad, mate. That's just a feather, mate. That's just a feather." Uh, that's what they say, word of mouth guy. Yeah, that is exactly what they say. Thank
Yeah,
you
true.
so much for your super chat there. Go on, bro.
Yeah, true. I was just looking at the comments as well, and I think
Mm.
there's someone the community of Yo skeptics. He
Yeah, I'm gonna
says
block
they
him.
came before Columbus is an out of date book for sure, and then he carries on. I had
Yeah,
no idea people are still pushing this pseudo-scientific idea.
there's no.
Ah, there's another one which says there is no archaeological evidence of the bones. Now, actually, there is. It was published in 1972, and it was by a Polish craniologist by the name of Andrzejski, and I know I'm butchering his name,
Yeah,
Andrzejski Wawrinski.
yeah. But you know
You
what
know,
they did with him, bro? You know what they did with him? They did a character assassination on his work as well. They said that he didn't basically he didn't dot some I's or cross some T's in the research, and they on that basis poo-pooed it. Now I've looked at that research, and I've looked at research parallel to it, and it's actually more thorough. It's actually more thorough than some of the research that goes side by side with um, the kind of work that Andre was doing. It's despicable. It is despicable. One of the main works that's used as sort of the flagship work that debunks Mr. Dr. Van Sertima's work. I did a live on that, and I couldn't. I mean, it was 2 hours plus long, and I could have been there 5 hours, showing how ridiculous that paper was. It was saying some of the most easily provable, demonstrably provable falsities. It would hold up. It would say it from one of the things it would say was, we know that the Olmec heads do not look anything like Nubians because here is a Nubian. There's an academic paper now. I can't remember his name, Haslip Vieira or something. Um, and it would show, in order to demonstrate this, it would show someone from lower Sudan, lower Kush, someone obviously mixed, and it would just relegate, like, I don't know, 70% of the population. This was an academic paper. And you're thinking, what? Like, what, Nubians aren't Nubians anymore? We have to in order to believe you're rubbish, we have to pretend that, like, the quintessential Nubian, like, didn't we've not just gone around for hundreds of years thinking of Nubians as quintessentially black. Oh, now we're gonna listen to you, who's coming to tell us now. Actually, no, Nubians look like this, and look how aquiline their nose is. It was just ridiculous, and that article is put up as the creme de la creme of the opposition against Van Sertima's work. It's when you see that, you just know, you know how rigged the game is. Thank you again, word of mouth guy. Um, says with his $5 super chat donation. No, seriously, that's the BS narrative, that it's a feather. Not gonna lie. Not go but NGA believe believe your lying eyes. F what them white people is saying. Sorry to troll a bit. Nah, you troll away, bro. But yeah, it is ridiculous. We finally did it. We got to the Olmecs in the end. We could have delved deeper. We could have delved deeper. But I want to say, guys, we will at some point we'll do more with Brother George in the future. He's as you guys can see, he's obviously very knowledgeable and has been a breath of fresh air this evening. So we have to have him back at some point. Um, the chat, the you need to be subscribed, guys. The Black Secret, you need to be subscribed. They're doing real good work, and you also need to go on their website, theblacksecret.co.uk. And also, Brother George, can you remind us of your Instagram as well?
Oh, yeah, we do have an Instagram page. It's quite popular. We need to do a little bit more with it. Currently, it's called The Black Secret 3. We couldn't get The Black Secret for the Instagram, so we went with 3.
Right.
But also as well, I just want to say, if you go to the website, www.theblacksecret.co.uk, we have a free book available. It's obviously a PDF because it has to be downloaded online, but you can get it. It's called 100 Black History Facts. It was written by the Black History Man and designed and put together by Brother George. And it has it's one of our taster elements. You can have it for free and see what the Black Secret is all about, because we've got a lot more of that kind of quality information available on our site if you subscribe to us.
Brilliant. And with that, chat, I'd like to say thank you so very much for joining myself and Brother George this evening. Not much else to say. Watch this back, digest what's been said, and rock with both our channels. Go on.
Just very quickly, guys, look at the chat. There is some other interesting stuff. Indie Nile, just very quickly, the Mahabharatas, Asian holy book tells of genocides of Dravidians, demons driven out and enslaved. It happened everywhere, still happening today. Natives get genocide driven out and downgraded. Tasmania, Australia. Trigger Happy at the end says the botanical evidence is so interesting because white people love to make it seem like they were responsible for world trade when it seems like the Americans was trading with the world before Europe. Perhaps next time we can go into all of that. There is all of those kind of evidences, linguistic evidences, and we didn't get a chance
Well,
to
listen,
touch
we had to do it the way we did it tonight because we couldn't miss talking about the late Professor Arday, and we couldn't miss talking about, for the first time having him on, we couldn't miss talking about Dr. Brother George's background and his trip to Egypt. So, we can, you have it, you heard it from him. He'll be back. So I'll be back, says Brother George. Thank you guys for joining us. From Crystal Compton, it's been your boy Trillblack with Brother George from the Black Secret. Thank you. We hit that. Oh, by the way, we hit that target. We hit the target. Okay.
Whoa.
So yeah, we hit the
Big
target.
things.
I mean, in terms of actual monetary numbers, we hit the target. So guys, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get it next week. In the next 7 days, that video is gonna be dropping. And just I'll leave it at that. They don't lie about everything. Everything is all I gotta say. From Crystal Compton, it's Trillblack and Brother George. Peace. Bye everyone.
Peace out. Take care.